Welcome to Guide to IELTS. Let's write a response to this Writing Task 1 academic question. What's the first thing you do? Read the question carefully. Sometimes you just have a single bar graph, line graph, etc. At other times you have more than one, but the data is such that it is part of a single question. An example is this one from Cambridge IELTS Book 8, which has data of 3 different years. If I would plot the same data on a line graph, this is what it would look like. So we don't consider this kind of a question as a combination question. Although there are 3 pie charts, they can be taken as one entity. In contrast, this question about marriages and divorces in USA has 2 bar graphs. When we read the question and look at the bar graphs, we realize that the 2 data are distinct. So when we write about this one, we'll need to cover each of the 2 bar graphs individually and then also try to figure out if we can compare the 2. So these kind of questions of Writing Task 1 academic, we refer to as combination questions. In combination questions, along with explaining each set of data individually, we also need to figure out and write about whether they are related. This question that we are working on today is an example of this. We have a table with data of annual visitors to a museum before and after renovation. And we have 2 pie charts about how satisfied these people were with their experience there in these 2 years. Usually our format for Writing Task 1 academic is first introductory paragraph which contains paraphrasing of the question, and then 2 body paragraphs which start with the overview or overall statement followed by the details such as the maximum, minimum, important features, comparisons and trends. These details would vary from one question to another. But when we are writing a combination question, we need to tweak this format because we need to write about both sets of data as well as the comparison between the 2. Let's start with this question now. The table below shows the numbers of visitors to Ashdown Museum during the year before and the year after it was refurbished. The charts show the result of surveys asking visitors how satisfied they were with their visit during the same 2 periods. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Write at least 150 words. Having read and understood the question, I look at the given picture. Without focusing on numbers and on which section of the pie charts represent which response, I can see from just a cursory glance that these are the main features. These 2 sections which have increased a lot, and then these 2 which have seen a decrease, especially this one which has seen a major decrease. This is what I mean by trust your eyes. Because when we are writing a report, we need to focus on the main features. When we have a pictorial representation, that is whenever we have a graph or a chart, the first thing we should do is just look at it and figure out what main features are immediately obvious to the eye. Next step is planning what you're going to write. Writing Task 1 academic doesn't need too much planning. Yet I highly recommend that you don't just jump into writing immediately. A good way to start planning of bar graphs, line graphs, pie charts and tables is to look for maximum and minimum, followed by any figures that are very close to it. The writing approach to maps and processes is different, which we have already discussed in other videos. First we look at the table. The table is pretty simple, 2 figures. There's a major increase in the number of visitors after refurbishment. Now we move on to the pie charts. In the pie charts, the first thing I look for is the maximum. The highest in the first one is dissatisfied at 40, followed by satisfied at 30. This has changed in the second one with satisfied taking over as the highest at 40, followed by the very satisfied category at 35. Then I look for the minimum. In the first one, it is no response at 5, and it's the same in second too. But in the second, there's another category which is at the same point, which is a very dissatisfied category. The category which is the highest in the first one is the second lowest in the second one. I now decide what sequence I'll present this data in. There is no one correct way, but it is important that the data is presented in a well-structured manner. I could choose to write the pie charts detail first, followed by the table, or vice versa. I could start writing the minimum first, followed by maximum. Also, there are 5 categories here in pie charts. I could handle all of them separately, or I could do what I've chosen to do, which is write about very satisfied and satisfied together, then dissatisfied and very dissatisfied together. This is called the clubbing of data, putting similar data together. Part of the planning of combination questions is trying to figure out if there is a direct connection in the trend in the two given data. In this case, there is. There is an increase in number of visitors, and there is also an increase in the percentage of satisfied visitors. Once we are done looking at the data carefully and figuring out what to write and when, we should be able to figure out our overview or overall statement. In this case, I'll mention in the overview statement that the total number of visitors as well as the percentage of satisfied visitors and very satisfied visitors has increased, and the dissatisfaction has decreased among visitors post-renovation. Before you start writing, there is one more thing that you should do. Quickly think about the vocabulary to be used. The vocabulary to be used can be divided into two categories. General vocabulary, which in case of writing task 1 academic includes words such as increase, go up, decrease, decline, go down, fluctuations, maximum, minimum, highest, lowest. Also changing a word like show to depict or to illustrate. This vocabulary should be on your tips, and as you write, you'd use these words, trying your best not to repeat any words. The vocabulary you need to think about before writing depends on the question you get. You think of words and phrases that you can use to replace the ones in the question. This is the tricky part because a variety of words is needed to get a good score, but we need to make sure that the word or the phrase works in the given context. For example, in this particular writing, I can change numbers to count or how many. So instead of writing the numbers of visitors, I could write the count of visitors or how many people visited. But I cannot change it to amount because amount is used for uncountable nouns. The word visitors can be changed to people who visited or those who visited or the ones who visited. For visited, we also have the word went to, and then there's another word frequent. So instead of saying that these many people visited the museum, can we also write these many people frequented the museum? I'll avoid it in this writing because to frequent a place does not just mean to visit a place, it means to visit a place regularly. A word that can, however, replace visitors is patrons. Similarly, for the year before and after, I could write pre and post or prior to and afterwards. For refurbished, I could change it to renovated and also to refurbishment and renovation. Makeover is another possible word. So before you start writing, think about these words. If you feel the need, jot them down, although it's not really required. A list of a few such words for this question are on your screen. Notice that a change in the form of word also adds to your lexical resource source. For example, changing satisfied to satisfaction or dissatisfied to dissatisfaction. After this, we start writing. The first paragraph, the beginning, is the paraphrasing of the question. By making a few changes such as changing number of visitors to how many people visited, and during the year before and after to in the years pre and post, the first paragraph that we have is, the given table gives the data of how many people visited Ashdown Museum in the years pre and post refurbishment, while the two pie charts depict the responses of the visitors when asked about their satisfaction level with their experience at the museum in these 2 years. Instead of writing how many people visited, we could also have written the annual count of visitors. Now we start the second paragraph, which begins with the overall statement. Overall, both the number of visitors to the museum and the percentage of those happy with their visit there saw a surge after the renovation. Another way of writing the same thing. Overall, not only did the number of those who visited increase after renovation, but the percentage of satisfied visitors also recorded a similar trend. Now we start giving the details. I've chosen to first mention the data that is there in the table. According to the table, the annual count of patrons increased from 74,000 before the museum was renovated to 92,000 afterwards. Another way of writing the same sentence, according to the table, the annual count of patrons before and after the museum was renovated was 74,000 and 92,000 respectively. Respectively is one word that I usually try to use at least once when I'm writing a report for Writing Task 1 Academic. Now I start writing the details of the pie chart. In a similar vein, as per the feedback of the visitors depicted in the pie charts, the proportion of those who were either very satisfied or satisfied jumped from a total of 45% to 75%. Of these, the former was 15% the year before and 35% in the year after. So as I had decided beforehand, I'm clubbing the data of satisfied and very satisfied visitors together, and I'll do the same with the dissatisfied and very dissatisfied visitors. So the next sentence will be, in contrast, the ones who expressed dissatisfaction or extreme dissatisfaction with the museum visit plummeted by 30%. While prior to being refurbished, half of the visitors were reported to be unhappy, afterwards only 20% conveyed unhappiness. Notice a few things in these sentences. Transition phrases such as in a similar vein, in contrast. The changes I have made to words such as changing dissatisfied to dissatisfaction and very dissatisfied to extreme dissatisfaction. And also introduction of words happy, happiness, unhappy, and unhappiness. After this, I'll write, a striking feature is that during the surveys regarding the feedback of experience at the museum, the only figure that was the same in the two time periods was the percentage of non-respondents, which was 5%. Phrases such as a striking feature is or a noteworthy feature is are useful when writing reports. However, for them to be truly effective, make sure you're using these phrases for data which is actually noteworthy. This is a screenshot of this writing posted on our website www.guide2ielts.com. For this writing and more IELTS related content, explore our YouTube channel and visit our website. Do like, share and comment. Subscribe to our channel. Likes, shares, comments and subscriptions are an important part of the feedback that we receive from you. All the very best.